few times. If something's important to a patient, you need to say it a few times. Patient satisfaction is highly tied into communication. Every question, when we look at the 10 composites, if we go to the Hospital Compare website, every question has a piece of communication in there. And if the communication isn't good, that will drive those scores down. And I've developed a model of communication that covers 3 key areas. And if you see this, it's the psychosocial, providing support, and the PI, the P in PI is actually the first thing we need, because remember, we need to start with the heart. We need to connect with the patient's emotional being before we move on to the clinical. And to give you an example of how I've seen this backfire is I've actually coached people, and we've worked with patients who are crying, and the clinician would say to them, "You'll have your test in a few minutes," completely disregarding the crying. Talk about driving down patient satisfaction scores. People will feel no one cares about them, and that's where that psychosocial comes in, that people care about them. And the other 2 parts to this PI model are interviewing, getting information, and educating, giving information. This is basically it. This is basically it, what we do in healthcare: provide psychosocial support, give information to patients, and get information from patients. Let's look at some HCAHPS scores that directly tie into this. Now, these questions directly tie into it. All the others have a big component of it. Because remember, the thing about managing perceptions, about how we communicate. Questions like, how often did your nurses communicate well with patients? How often did your doctors communicate well with patients? How often did staff explain about medications before giving them to patients? Explain, education, communication. Now, the one thing that concerns me about that question, how often did staff explain about medications before giving them to patients, the national average for that question, if you go to the Hospital Compare website, 60%. That is a big concern. 40% of the people on the national average are saying that medications are not explained well to them, and if medications are not explained well to them, it's not just a matter of patient satisfaction, it's a matter of patient safety. I've read countless stories where medications were not explained, people did not take them properly. I read about one case where a man was given Coumadin, and he was explained in detail all the information. And this time he was actually explained, but the only thing is no one checked to see if he could read. He was not able to read the instructions. He ended up back in the hospital within a few days. Fortunately, he did well. But now we're getting also into an area of